is Akshat Shah, and I'm a student from grade 10 studying in Mumbai. And over the past few years, I've gained an interest in finance to the extent to which I might want to get into finance and perhaps explore it as a possible future career path. But I realized that I need to learn more about finance to do so. That's why I decided to speak to close friends and family who have big positions in the finance industry and could guide me as towards the best possible option for me. And during my conversations with my friends and family, I realized that there are so many students just like me in high school who also want to get into finance and possibly explore it in the future but don't know where to get started. That's why that sparked an idea in me to start a podcast where I can share my learning with you guys to help you all learn more about what a finance career might look like and how you can best get started in the industry from advice from industry experts and industry leaders who've spent years in the finance industry and have enough knowledge. In today's podcast, we discuss some of one of the most important aspects of finance that we've all heard of: taxation and India's tax policies. Now, most of us know how basic income tax might be filed or just seen somebody else do it. And we know how tax works within us as individuals. But today, we uncover the key tax processes and systems taken place by multinational corporations. So, we invited the Asia Pacific tax head of Amazon, Darpan Mehta. He not only discusses the key tax processes and systems taken place at a company like Amazon, but also tells us what sets apart a CA, a lawyer, and a tax advisor. He also gives crucial financial advice to to individuals and students who may want to work at a tax department of a large corporation like Amazon, and also answers some of the most important and complex questions regarding taxation that affects us every day. So please, watch till the end and enjoy the show. Yeah, so hi sir, it's good to have you here on this podcast.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think I've already introduced you to them, but I wanted to start by, just giving you a brief question on, what do you do right now and what are your qualifications? Yeah.
So presently I manage the tax function for one of the businesses of Amazon for the Asia Pacific region.
Yeah.
I qualified as a chartered accountant way back, I think in 2003. Graduated in commerce from NM College in Villiparli, Mumbai.
Yeah.
And essentially over this time I graduated and became a chartered accountant. I've worked in the tax functions, worked as a tax advisor over the last 25 years. So you can call me a tax person in and out.
So you mentioned the term chartered accountant, right? So this is something I want to get to. Can you just explain to me what a chartered accountant is?
Sure. Maybe we'll take a step back, right?
Yeah.
Because you have a deep interest in finance. We spoke about the parts of finance that you're curious about. So you think of chartered accountancy as a field of finance which focuses on a particular aspect of business.
Yeah.
So a business has three aspects.
Yeah.
There is an aspect of the business which is focused on manufacturing, supply chain, what you need to produce.
Yeah.
There is an aspect of the business that is focused on, the marketing of those products, finding customers, attracting new customers, new markets. And the third aspect of the business, which is a very critical aspect of the business, is finance. And within finance, obviously there is an aspect which is associated with managing the cash flow of the business, but there's an aspect which is associated with managing the reporting of the performance of the business. There are a lot of people like banks, your shareholders, the government, who's interested to know how your business is doing. There are compliances associated with it. So a chartered accountant is deeply involved in aspects associated with how you report your financial performance, what disclosures do you make, whether you comply with all the regulatory laws that are applicable to your business. Especially if you're a listed company, then the number of laws become significantly more. Tax is a very important law that applies to pretty much every business in India and elsewhere. So chartered accountant is a field which focuses on, in a simple word, if you look at the balance sheet, the chartered accountant's work sort of starts from reporting the business performance, taking care of every aspect of the balance sheet, the tax portion of the balance sheet, and the disclosures in the balance sheet, and then obviously using that as an input to give feedback to the business that this is what you're doing well, this is not sustainable, and so on and so forth. We can talk more about it as we go along, but That's what a chartered accountant does for a business.
Yeah, and so there's this term, when you say chartered accountant, there's this term that I heard about practicing as a chartered accountant.
Sure.
So can you just explain, what that term actually refers to, and if you've done that as well?
So yes, I was a partner with PricewaterhouseCoopers, which is one of the large chartered accountancy firms in India. And what practicing as a chartered accountant means is that there are some functions of chartered accountants do, which a business doesn't necessarily do in-house. So for example, you prepare your financial statements, but the law requires you to get your financial statements audited by an independent expert. A chartered accountant is the relevant independent expert who audits and verifies whether your financial statements are true and fair, and so on and so forth. So that is one thing chartered accountants in practice do for businesses. They will review your financial statements. The other thing chartered accountants in practice do, amongst various others, is a lot of tax expertise is very difficult for businesses to build in-house. It's like going to a doctor, right? He's an expert. He deeply understands his field. So tax is also a field like law, medicine. It's a professional field. You need deep expertise, you need experience over the years. So over a period of time, what companies have realized that it's sometimes for very specialized stuff, you need to go and consult with experts who then gather their expertise over multiple companies. So that's another thing chartered accountants in practice do. They consult with companies on tax matters when you need that level of expertise. So these are the two main things a chartered accountant in practice does. There are a lot of other things as well, like internal audit. Beyond auditing your financials, you want someone external to come in and tell you whether my processes are robust, whether there is scope for financial efficiency in the manner in which I'm managing my cash flow. So chartered accountants develop that expertise. They do this for multiple clients. So they develop better expertise than you can do it in-house. So again, companies would go to a chartered accountant and say, can you do my internal audit of how I'm managing my inventory and tell me whether there are gaps or potential for making this more efficient. And then over a period of time, chartered accountants have become more and more evolved. So these were the traditional things they used to do. They used to do audit, they used to do internal audit, they used to do tax, but now chartered accountants help companies go for an IPO because there's a lot of regulatory analysis, financial analysis involved. Chartered accountants also have evolved in practice to help companies raise finance because they understand what bankers, what lenders look for in a company. So they become the effective bridge to help the business communicate with potential lenders that why they should lend money, communicate the financial performance. So,
but then, when you talk about raising, helping with an IPO or raising funds, can't that be done by like a lawyer or an investment banker as well? Does it have to be chartered accountants who need to do that?
So this is a very good question actually, because we try to always bucket people. We say, oh, he's a lawyer, he's a chartered accountant, he's an investment banker, and that's easy because they have those designations or those experiences. There is each of these three, if you look at it in a very theoretical way, are very different functions. So a lawyer would typically only focus on the application of laws, including tax laws, to a business, but not necessarily go beyond analyzing those laws, and generally be more involved if there is a dispute in those laws and you have to litigate those in a court. So lawyers are very good at that. And I'm not saying they can't do the analysis, but they're more effective when you have to litigate it, especially in an environment like India. An investment banker largely solely focuses on raising money from different stakeholders or helping you access the market through an IPO and so on and so forth. But he focuses on that. Chartered accountants, I think in India especially, they've evolved to do some of both of these functions, but also then focus on audits, which only they can do. Lawyers and investment bankers can't do audits. And in India especially, and this is slightly different in other parts of the world, especially US, chartered accountants have developed better expertise in tax. So I think, and this is what I do. I mean, I am now in a company where I look at these three guys to see who should I use for what. I look for people who have the right expertise that I need, and generally broader expertise than saying I need to go to a lawyer or I need to go to an investment banker. I'll define what my need is and say who's the right person I know who has the right expertise. So you can start anywhere. I think there are good lawyers who do what chartered accountants do.
Yeah.
There are good chartered accountants who do what lawyers do.
Yeah.
So you have to start somewhere,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to restrict you
Yeah.
as you go along.
But
So
but do you think, like, you work at Amazon, right? Do you think there is an interchange or times when the work that a lawyer or an investment banker does, intersects or crosses with something a chartered accountant does?
I mean, I've
Guys
seen them
overlap.
work together
Yeah.
on situations like, and maybe I'll give you a slightly different example. Let's say we were going for an IPO.
Yeah.
An IPO means a company is trying to raise money from
Yeah.
shareholders. You would typically use all three.
Yeah.
You would necessarily use an investment banker because he has the best relationships in the capital markets.
Yeah.
He knows, how to price your IPO. He knows how to position it before institutional shareholders and so on and so forth. You will necessarily use a chartered accountant because you'll have to present your financial information in a particular way. You'll have to do risk analysis of various tax issues you may have. You will have to do disclosures. So chartered accountant will help you there. A lawyer is critical in that because there are a lot of rules that apply to what needs to be there and what should be there in an IPO document, what positions to take, and there will be questions that come from different shareholders or potential shareholders that why you not disclose this. So I can't imagine for a situation like this you'll go to only one of them and that one person will have that expertise. It's a slightly broader answer to your question, but what I would suggest to folks at your age is not get fixated that, oh, if I've started in a particular way, do I have to if I go for law, am I restricted from doing tax? I think over a period of time you'll see you can broaden your horizons. You may start narrow, but you generally then go broad. So the other interesting thing that I've seen, and especially I think because India is growing so fast and growing in different ways than we ever imagined, I've seen a lot of people, lawyers who become successful at doing what chartered accountants do. I've seen chartered accountants who, without doing an MBA, have become investment bankers. So I think we are in a country and in an environment which is so dynamic that if more than your degree or more than the college you went to, I think the experience you get and over a period of time allows you to move between different things.
So over a period of time, you would say that you can explore different possibilities.
Absolutely, there's so many examples of that. I know chartered accountants who are CEOs of companies. Now, could you imagine that? That someone who's just a chartered accountant is a CEO of a large company. And there are lawyers who become CEOs of companies. So,
and so you started your journey, I think, by qualifying as a CA. But before joining Amazon, where did you work and what did you do there?
So you asked an earlier question about in-house practicing as a CA. So when I started my career, and that's what I recommend everyone who wants to do something in tax, is it's better to start with a CA firm because you get the opportunity to work on multiple clients in multiple industries across multiple types of tax issues. And that experience is a very good foundation. So that's how I started. I started my journey by doing articleship, which is a mandatory part of starting your chartered accountancy. So I started my articleship with a firm in those days called Arthur Anderson. It was a multinational, accounting and tax firm. I spent a couple of years there. Then I joined a boutique tax consulting firm because it gave me an opportunity to do even broader things in tax. Like in Arthur Anderson, I had never done due diligences. But when I joined a boutique tax consulting firm, they gave me a broader opportunity to do, even due diligences as an example. Then I realized that I've done a lot of this stuff, but I'd never done GST or indirect taxes. So I wanted an opportunity to focus on that. So I went into another big four, which gave me an opportunity to do something different. And over a period of 20 years before I joined Amazon, I'd worked in different parts of tax as a consultant to many different clients. So I felt I was learning always. I was doing things which I had not done before, which is probably the right way to build any career, right? Not just a career as a chartered accountant. So that's how I did what I did before I came to Amazon.
Okay. And now that you're at Amazon, what is your role and responsibility at Amazon, and what is your your day-to-day life look like?
Okay. Wow, I wish there was a simple, clean answer to that question. So it depends on the day and it depends on the time of the year. So when you So, and if I have to define my job,
Yeah.
my job is to manage Amazon's tax function, strategy, or issues, or compliances, or litigation
Yeah.
for a particular business, for a particular region.
Yeah.
So this includes multiple countries,
Yeah.
multiple types of taxes, and across the life cycle of tax
Yeah.
issues, from planning, compliance, and if there is an issue that we need to explain to
Yeah.
the tax authorities. So the portfolio that I manage, and with a very large team, and there are team members who focus on aspects of the
Yeah.
portfolio. So the best way to define my job is I manage a team
Yeah.
of very experienced tax professionals who help Amazon uh, comply with taxes
Yeah.
for its businesses across Asia Pacific.
Okay.
And in terms of what my day looks like, I think tax. There is a part of tax which is quite predictable.
Yeah.
So you have to file your tax return
Yeah.
every November, right?
Yeah.
You know that at the end of the financial year, you have to publish your financial statements, and the tax is a very important input to the financial statements. So there is a part of that is one predictable part of the job. So we know pretty much on a month-to-month basis what things we have to manage in the broader function that we manage. But then there is the unpredictable part. So you can never predict when tax authorities will ask you a question or will seek to understand what you have filed, or seek to challenge what you have filed, and then you have to engage with them. And that's the unpredictable part. You can't predict the volume of that, you can't predict the timing of that. So that's the unpredictable part. And the other unpredictable part is there are always new things that the business wants to do. So they want to launch a new product in a new country. And sometimes something that has been launched gets disrupted because of some issue, and all of these create a tax question or a tax issue which we have to then manage. But that can remain unpredictable because you're not doing the business, you're sort of supporting the business and doing what they do. So that's you go in, some part of the day what it looks like, and then something comes in your inbox and somebody says, oh, this has happened, can you help manage this, or can you take this to a logical conclusion? So that's the combination of the job.
I mean, you just briefly mentioned the financial statement. Can you just briefly explain what financial statements are?
Okay, so every company, not every company, every business, right, has to know how its business performance, how its business is performing, and to depict its business performance, it has to prepare essentially a set of financial statements which comprise your income statement, so revenue, expenses, balance sheet, which is what are your assets and liabilities, and that is what I think businesses do depending upon their size and complexity. The financial statement is as complex as the size and diversity of the business. So and then there are a lot of stakeholders like your shareholders, the government, society at large, and if you're especially a large business, people want to know what you're doing. Your business is big, you have an impact, you're paying taxes, are you paying the right amount of taxes? So financial statements have a lot of disclosures. Like for example, the latest set of disclosures that financial statements now have is the impact of your business on the environment. Because we all realize, businesses are a very important stakeholder in their impact on the environment. So now financial statements have adapted to that and say that, okay, in your financial statements, you'll even have to make disclosures. What is your impact on the environment? How much carbon are you emitting? What strategies are you taking? So over a period of time, financial statements have evolved to incorporate all of this. So if I have to simplify it, it's the best way to understand. Picking up at the annual report of a company, let's say you're interested in knowing what Reliance does, it's probably a 300-400 page annual report, which is what we call the financial statements. It's the best way to understand what they do, how they do it, how are they performing, what impact is the business having. So that's what financial statements means. And you have to do it on a quarterly basis depending upon the size of the business and report it.
So now you follow up on that. So what are the different roles, or would you say, area, sections, or departments that come under the tax department of Amazon?
Okay, I think a better way to answer that question is maybe give a quick overview of tax as a function, and then go into how it is organized at Amazon. I think the former is probably more relevant for this conversation. So and this feeds into the conversation we had earlier, right? So tax as such, when
Yeah.
you think of it from a business perspective, uh, essentially, as a concept, there are two types of taxes.
Yeah.
There is what we call a direct tax,
Yeah.
which is a tax on your income.
Yeah.
So you've done your business, you have revenues, you have expenses, you make profits, and then there is a tax you have to pay on those profits. So that's why we call it direct, because
Yeah.
it is borne by the company.
Yeah.
So it's called direct tax, it's called income tax, it's called corporate tax. All of these are the same terms.
Okay.
So that's what direct tax means.
Yeah.
Indirect tax
Yeah.
is the tax that a company charges to its customers.
Yeah.
So, for example, you bought an iPhone,
Yeah.
you will see that in the invoice that you paid for the iPhone, and assuming you paid 50,000, you will see 42,000 is the price of the iPhone,
Yeah.
8,000 is GST.
Yeah.
So GST is a type of indirect tax. You are paying it.
Yeah.
The final customer pays it,
Yeah.
but the company collects it from you and deposits with the government.
Okay.
So that's indirect tax because it's borne by you, obviously,
Yeah.
because you're the final consumer.
Yeah.
But the company has a liability to collect from you and
Yeah.
pay.
Got it.
So fundamentally, there are these two types of taxes: direct corporate income tax and indirect taxes. Now, within direct and indirect, there are varieties of different taxes, but we'll not go into that. Now, so if these are the two types of taxes, and a large company like Amazon or Apple has to manage its tax functions, so they can either organize it by direct or indirect, or they can organize it by the life cycle of the tax function.
Got it.
So there will be a set of people who will be responsible for, strategy for managing taxes. Because when a business does something new or wants to explore something new, you have to develop a tax strategy. How will we comply with the law? What tax law will apply to us? What is the interpretation of that law? So that is what we call strategy. So that's one department in the tax function.
Got it.
Strategy or planning. Then, so you've done the strategy or planning for the taxes, then you have to comply. So you have a compliance function. So that is a group of people who develop deep expertise in complying with taxes. So for example, some countries, the income tax return of a company runs into more than 8,000 pages. Now, you can imagine for a large company which has multiple operations in multiple countries for different businesses, just managing compliances with direct and indirect taxes is a very deep expertise. It needs a lot of technology, it needs a lot of investing in automation. So compliance is another function within tax. Then the third function is, okay, you strategized for your taxes, you complied with your taxes, but you now need to explain it to the government. Because at the end of the day, they are your key stakeholders. They need to be comfortable that you paid the right amount of taxes. So they will have questions, they will audit you, they will sometimes disagree with you. So you have to manage that. So you call it the audit function or litigation function or controversy function. So you can think of this as the life cycle. You plan, you comply, and then you engage with the government to ensure that they are comfortable with it. But what has happened over a period of time is within taxes, because of the different types of taxes that we have, more functions have evolved. So transfer pricing is one type of function within corporate income tax, which is very specialized because it's cross-border transactions between group companies, whether you're paying the right amount of tax on that. So it's a very specialized field within tax. So transfer pricing has become another function within tax. Then when you do business acquisitions, when you do mergers, when you sell a business, when you do restructuring, the tax laws that apply to that again are super specialized. So there's another function that's evolved which focuses on what we call M&A. So, and then very large companies like us, we realize that we need to bring a lot of technology into the tax function across all of these functions. So there are a group of people who are focusing on tax technology. So because they need to understand tax laws, they need to understand data, and they need to also be specialists in how technology like Gen AI can be used in any of these functions. Like, can you use Gen AI to read a 200-page court judgment and summarize it in 2 pages? Right? You guys use Gen AI for that. So even this function tries to think of these things. So tax technology has become, and there are more, But I'm
Yeah.
using these 6 as examples uh, to, to respond to your question as how is tax function in a large company organized?
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah. So today you would say that with the rise of technology and AI, I think is it fair to say that Amazon uses a lot of technology and a lot of AI today to make it to be able to read such long tax statements?
I think we are at the early stage, but a very, very promising stage of doing
Yeah.
this. So, the Gen AI technology has always been used in
Yeah.
tax. I mean,
Yeah.
there is really no way to manage.
Yeah.
We in our tax function globally, we have more than 1,500 people.
Yeah.
So we've always used technology to manage our tax function,
Yeah.
and technology that was available at that point of
Yeah.
time. 15 years ago it was macros in Excel,
Yeah.
then Visual Basic, then more and more tools have become available over a period of time. And Gen AI is now the newest tool.
Yeah.
But from what I've understood of Gen AI, since your question is
Yeah.
around Gen AI, it's probably one of the most promising transformation tools that are available.
Yeah.
And we are now looking at how we can use it
Yeah.
in managing our function more
Yeah.
efficiently. And the example as you picked up was, today we expect our team members to read a 200-page code judgment
Yeah.
and summarize it. And it's quite a structured
Yeah.
summary, right? Summarize the facts, summarize the arguments made
Yeah.
by one side, summarize the arguments made by the other side, and summarize the final conclusion
Yeah.
and the reasoning for that.
Yeah.
Now, it seems, and the early results show
Yeah.
that if you ask, ChatGPT to read a judgment,
Yeah.
it is able to do this
Yeah.
to a level where somebody can then review it rather than writing it from scratch. So that sounds very promising.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're, this is one example, but
Yeah.
we're, trying this in different use cases
Yeah.
across our functions. So it sounds very exciting
Yeah.
to explore it.
Yeah. So, because you said, Amazon's been using AI so much now, I think majority of people today, especially my age, are wondering, with this rise of AI and its increased use in, different, not just Amazon, but in other companies as well, do you think it has the potential to maybe take over the jobs or the operations of chartered accountants or lawyers in the future?
So this is a brilliant question. So I'm going to answer it by giving an example from. So I remember when I started working in Arthur Andersen, I was spending at least 2 hours every day faxing documents.
Oh.
There used to be a fax machine in the old days when you couldn't scan and email documents. You used to fax it. So I used to spend 2 hours. So I have great skills in faxing.
Yeah.
They're not relevant anymore.
Yeah.
But what have I used those 2 hours for?
Yeah.
I've used those 2 hours to do something more complicated, sophisticated, and actually improve my skills in other areas. Like, it will save my time.
Yeah.
So the mental model for any technology tool is it's going to save time.
Yeah.
But it's going to save time for things which are becoming more and more routine.
Yeah.
Every field, whether it's tax, whether it's investment banking, whether it's lawyering, it needs a judgment, which is a very human skill.
Yeah.
It needs years of experience because a lot of judgment comes from having experienced something and different things, and then connecting the dots.
Yeah.
Which is a very human skill.
Yeah.
And even when you see what Gen AI is able to do, summarizing a judgment, which somebody at an analyst level does and spends 8 to 10 hours, a 200-page judgment should take him 8 to 10 hours. Now Gen AI would give him the first draft. The same analyst would then have to use maybe not the 8 hours, but 3 hours to see critically what nuances connecting the dots from other judgments, or what impact that this judgment has on his clients or a particular industry. So he was going to do that after spending 8 hours summarizing the judgment. Now he can spend a little more time doing the more value-added work. So across, if you look at the last 250 years of the Industrial Revolution, every time a new technology has come, it has saved people time to do more evolved things. And we become more intelligent and we become more advanced in our thinking. That's what generally happens. So I don't really subscribe to this theory of that it will replace human beings. I think it will only make human beings smarter. It's a tool to make human beings even smarter. Why should you spend 2 hours faxing documents? What is it going to teach you?
Okay, so now I think I'm going to get to one of the most pertinent questions, which is students who may want to work at Amazon in the future, but at the tax department of Amazon, any other company for that matter, uh, what do you look at for somebody who's applying for a job there? I mean, do you look at the college that they go to, their previous work experience? What do you look at?
No, that's a tough question because it's become so difficult to find because CVs look sometimes look the same,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because everybody uses the same techniques to write their CVs, so you have to see through that, and it's important to have a good CV.
Yeah.
It can't be a flimsy CV
Yeah.
with grammatical errors and all that. That'll definitely exclude you even from being considered.
Yeah.
But if I were to look at somebody who's fresh out of college, has no work experience, and I'm consider he wants to apply to the tax department, I think I would look for three things.
Yeah.
And I think there is no maths to these three things
Yeah.
because it's a lot of judgment.
Yeah.
So the first thing I would look for is consistency of academic record.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be high.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be, high, low is a question to understand better.
Yeah.
As long as it's consistent, or it's a person who has continuously upgraded his ability to be strong in academics. That's something I would look for, and I'll explain why. Because most professional fields, whether it's tax, lawyers, investment bankers, they need you over a period of time to be very analytical.
Yeah.
And your academic record is a good proxy for someone who has a strong analytical mind. And again, I want to clarify here, it doesn't need to be 44. Someone who's consistent or has been able to scale up. And I think that shows somebody's focus, rigor. So I would look for that. That is one. The second thing I would look for is, and this sometimes is not very visible from the CV, but it's very visible during the interview, is how does that person explain things? Anything. It doesn't have to be a technical thing. It may be a simple question is, why do you like playing cricket? What is that person's approach to explain things? Is there a certain logic? Does he use data? Does he use reasoning? So logic, data, reasoning. Again, these are very important skills in a field like lawyers, investment bankers, CAs, because that's what you do on a day-to-day basis. You look at data, you look at a lot of information, and you have to organize it, and then you have to present it in a simplified way. So I would look for clues, because it's very difficult to judge this for a person who's never worked. But I would look for clues from whatever he's done in his life. It could be anything. I would look for clues for his ability to do logical data reasoning and ability to present that in a simplified way. So that's the second thing I would look for. I think the third thing I would look for is just level of energy and enthusiasm to explore this field, because it's a tough field. I mean, actually every field is tough. But I've seen, especially law. So a lot of these expert fields need in the initial years for you to really invest a lot of experience in building your base, and that strengthens you in the long term. So I think I would look for I would look for someone with energy and enthusiasm, and just understand why is it that he's interested in this field. How does he connect to this field? And when you see that, you somehow see a combination of a person who has a good chance to get trained and has a good chance of success. And at the end of the day, there are so many other things that go into these things. But I think that to me is a good foundation. When I interview people at the entry level.
And one of my final questions was, what advice do you have for students, at my age or in high school right now, who will, want to get into the finance industry or, or get into the tax department as well? Is there any special advice that you'll have for them, especially at this point when they're still in school?
I think I'll connect the advice with the three things that I just said, what I would look for. I think first is be curious about new things. I think your ability to your curiosity to understand new things, your ability to absorb new things, analyze them, contextualize them, explain them, deepens your general ability to be analytical. So I would advise people to get curious.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're interested in Gen AI, then go a little deep and understand how it is changing things.
Yeah.
You'll collect a lot of information, you will analyze it, you will reason it, you will then summarize and present it. I think that skill is very important. So I would advise people, somebody who's in the 9th or 10th grade, to be curious about a lot of new things.
Yeah.
The second thing I would generally advise is, do focus on having a consistent academic record.
Yeah.
I think it helps.
Yeah.
It sort of builds the foundation over a period of
Yeah.
time. And it sort of demonstrates a certain amount of commitment that you have to your responsibilities.
Yeah.
To me, that's probably the best
Yeah.
way a student can show commitment
Yeah.
to his responsibilities. You may have good reasons, you may not have done well in one year, and you'll get an opportunity to explain that. But people look at a long-term period. So 1 year doesn't really necessarily make an adverse impact or even a positive impact, which is why I use the word consistent.
Yeah.
So I would say focus on that. And I think the third thing is, if you identify an area of interest, and I think this is probably more relevant for kids starting from 9th, that you may start developing an area of interest, like you've developed an interest in finance. Then don't restrict yourself to what the school is exposing you to. Again, goes back to being curious. See if you can, do more in that field, demonstrate a deeper enthusiasm for it. One, I hope you'll enjoy it. You'll learn something that others are not learning, or you'll learn to ask interesting questions, understand new things, and then also demonstrate to people that why you're enthusiastic. So connecting it back to the three things that I look for is what my advice would be.
And this is something that you also did when you were like our age?
To be very honest, I think times have changed, to be very frank. We had very few, we had a lot of very clear decisions. Making decisions on what careers to choose was relatively clearer 20 years back. It was either a CA or an MBA or doctors or medicine. There were very few things to choose from. I think, I was always a curious person, and I don't think I did it because I wanted to do something. That's who I am. So I think that's sort of helped me over a period of time. I used to read a lot, generally, about things, and one thing led to the another. So I've done some of these things. I think the only thing I didn't have the opportunity to do is I didn't really have a platform to pursue any of these things, interests during college, because college was quite well defined. It was quite academic. There were not a lot of platforms where you could do internships with businesses. There were not a lot of platforms where you could engage with people who are doing what you want to do. And we were also not that exposed. So I think it was till about 15th grade, I was quite academic, which I now realize was not so helpful, which I think you guys have more exposure and opportunity to. But so apart from that, I think being curious and being committed to focus on academics were two things I was able to do, but didn't really get an opportunity beyond that. I wish I did.
And today we have more opportunities.
I think so.
Yeah. So I think that's it for the podcast. So thank you for joining me. And
my pleasure. I hope it was interesting for you and your audience.
Yeah.
Hi, thank you for watching, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. I will be bringing on more guests and industry leaders who can give their insight and share their experiences on the industry. Please let me know if there's any specific industry you'd like me to go over as well. And please like, share and subscribe, and share it especially with those students just like yourself who can also gain insight out of this, and we can help everyone achieve learn more.